I want to put fire on my fasting. The thing is that when I'm fasting, like my metabolic rate is dropping, right? That's just what happens, unfortunately. It's not like you start fasting and everything revs up and your metabolic rate increases. Like when you're fasting, sure, you might drop fat, but you're also bringing that metabolic rate down. Now, there's an absolutely absurd, ludicrous, insane sounding way to increase metabolic rate during fasting. And I want you to hear me out in its entirety. Okay, because this actually has some interesting merit behind it, and there's interesting science, and it's still involving fasting. So don't totally turn your back on me because this is going to sound wild, all right? We're talking about this FGF21 approach, which is pretty wild, but I'm going to say right out the gate, you need to already be in decent shape for this to be safe and effective. You've got to already have maybe a little bit of muscle on you. You've already got to be pretty lean. It's a great way for people to leverage fasting to go from lean to shredded, and we're seeing it utilized quite a bit. Now, if you don't mind, drop a quick comment down below for the algorithm. It just helps things out a ton. It gets the engagement up, and that's what YouTube wants to see these days. And also, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So cutting right to the chase, I'll tell you what it is. It's taking 1 or 2 days out of the month and doing what is called a sugar fast. Sounds totally wild. The good news is you could do it with fruit. You don't have to use pure sugar. We'll talk about that in a minute. You're basically taking 1 or 2 days here and there, predominantly the day after a fast, where you're keeping glucose and sucrose rather pretty high to initiate an interesting mechanism, this thing called FGF21. So in order for this to make sense, again, before you hate me, just hear me on this. Do you remember when you were a kid and you would eat sugar and it would actually give you energy and you'd run around like a maniac? And now as an adult, you eat sugar and it just makes you feel like terrible, right? Well, it's because of this thing called FGF21, and it declines as we age. Basically, resistance begins and receptiveness goes down. So this whole molecule that would normally help us get energy from sugar in this interesting energy expenditure and heat way diminishes. But what happens when you're fasting, a regular fast without sugar, just a traditional water fast, you actually have significant increases in FGF21. This has actually been seen as a longevity marker. It's a molecule that is secreted when we are healthy, and when we are fasting, we actually increase our levels of FGF21, which is one of the reasons why we have an increase in what is called uncoupling, where the mitochondria actually just uncouples and dissipates energy as heat. So you're actually literally dissipating energy as heat when FGF21 increases. The downside is, even though FGF21 increases during a regular fast, your metabolic rate has diminished so much during a regular fast that you're not really reaping a solid benefit from it. So this absolutely ludicrous, insane thing is actually taking a day after a fast and going relatively higher sugar. But here's the caveat. The fat needs to be insanely low. The protein even needs to be low. You almost have to think of it as like a fruit fast, or I guess a sugar fast. I know like friends of mine like Mark Bell and they're doing this. That it's fairly extreme and they're catching a lot of crud for it. But I actually understand the mechanism here, so I know that they're not loco. I know what they're doing. And it makes sense to just do a video instructing on it, because there's going to be people that want to experiment with it. And I want to make sure that I give really solid disclosures here. The evidence is very strong that if you have type 2 diabetes, or if you have obesity, or you metabolically unhealthy, you will not get the same effect from FGF21 as a healthy, lean person. Period. Okay. Your muscle, your tissue is not going to be receptive to the FGF21. The literature published in the journal Obesity and Diabetes Metabolism has directly made it pretty clear that lean people and overweight people respond differently. FGF21 will elevate, but it won't actually get to the tissue level and do what it's supposed to do. So if you are someone that is already like overweight or a type 2 diabetic or insulin resistant, stick with regular fasting, and then maybe occasionally dip your toe in the water with this and watch your biomarkers closely. It has the potential to rev up fat burning significantly. So in the perfect situation, let's just say you're metabolically healthy, right? What you would want to do is you would want to do like a regular day of fasting, okay? And that's like a day when, do your normal thing, right? Sip on the LMNT electrolytes, sip on that kind of stuff. Again, I put a link down below. That's what I do when I fast. So, not everyone's that way, but personally, for me, for the last 6-7 years, that's how I fast. And I usually use the sparkling ones these days because it kind of tastes like a soda and it curbs my appetite. So do like a regular fast, your electrolytes, things like that are totally fine. I'll pop the link down below if you want to try it, because that's a free sample variety pack with any purchase. And a big thank you to them, because I can't make these videos without sponsors, especially the way YouTube is these days. So big thank you to LMNT, but it's also legitimately what I use. So link down below. Okay, so you do that for maybe 24 hours or whatever your kind of longer fast looks like. And then the next day, you're going to want to find fruits or just straight up sucrose if you want to go that route, but find fruits that are higher in sucrose. So you might be looking at things like kiwis and maybe just peel the skins off. You want to keep fiber low too. What this is going to do, as wild as it sounds, if you are metabolically healthy, is it's going to elevate this FGF21, which then increases energy expenditure significantly. There was a really profound study. The initial study was done in mice where, like, in calorically equal diets, the pure sucrose diet ended up losing significantly more fat than any of the other diet groups. And they preserved muscle really well too. And the thing is it because they had this huge hockey stick increase in FGF21. Now, there are people out there that are doing this kind of FGF21 sugar type fasting like almost every day. They're eating just high sugar and then protein at night. And they're doing this for weeks and weeks on it. I'm not suggesting that. I am suggesting you do your traditional fasting, and then the next day you keep fat extremely low and you go ahead and you increase that sucrose or those higher sucrose fruits while keeping the fats low and the protein low until the end of the day when you just have a larger meal with protein, still low fat, and then the next day go back to your normal diet. It sounds like this is like an extreme fad diet thing, and I'm not going to lie, it kind of is, but I have a duty to the industry to at least make some sense of the things that are going on out there and to make sure that people do things safely. As of the time of recording this, I have done variations of this, but not in this style, and it wasn't necessarily for this reason. You see, after fasting, your body is really, really primed for utilizing fat. So it makes a lot of sense to kind of ride that wave and not necessarily give it dietary fat. It makes more sense to say, hey, I'm going to do a regular fast, and then the next day I'm going to just increase my protein and decrease my fats. Now, that extends the fast, but if you wanted to do this sugar approach, you're not just extending the fast, you're actually extending the fast with a pretty significant upregulation in metabolic rate and heat. So that's why we're seeing so much in the way of just immense fat burning. What I really would caution people on is don't make this a habit. It's a way to accelerate after a fast. So if you intermittent fast, where you say, I skip breakfast, and that doesn't count in this case. I'm talking about, okay, maybe once or twice a month, do a longer fast, 24, 36 hours, and then extend the back end of that fast with high sucrose fruits or pure sucrose, whatever you want to do, and just sort of extend with a little bit of sugar. I know it sounds wild. People will clip this and make me sound like a maniacal person, but just know that my duty here is just explaining it, understanding the mechanism, and giving a practical solution, and also adding the caution to those that are dealing with insulin resistance or are currently significantly overweight or obese. This is a way to go from maybe 12% body fat down to 9, or from 15% down to 10, or from 10 down to 7. It's for that kind of extra edge of accelerating a fast. As always, keep it locked here on my channel. See you tomorrow.